Hi everyone, good evening. Today we are here to speak about lookout circulars. They're colloquially known as lookout notices. So, a lookout circular is an administrative mechanism whereby certain designated authorities are permitted to issue requests to the immigration authorities to monitor and control the movement of certain individuals, whether they are Indian nationals or foreign nationals, both. They monitor the control of these individuals in arriving or departing India at various points of entry and exit. It could be at the airports, at seaports, and at land borders. Now, the issuance of an LOC, that's the lookout circular, can have significant implications for the individual that is named in it because it restricts their travel and can even lead to a potential detention of them at the airport. Now, the laws on the LOCs are unfortunately very unclear. Therefore, it makes the fundamental constitutional questions regarding the personal freedom of individuals, as well as it limits the executive discretion, which is very relevant to note. These LOCs, if you open any of your books, you will not find it under any Indian law or statute. It's not in the CRPC, it's not in the IPC, it's not in the BNSS or the BNS. There is no special law made for this. It takes its power from the executive directives and guidelines that are issued time and again by the Ministry of Home Affairs. Now, these guidelines for the issuance of lookout circulars have historically been prescribed through office memorandums. These are issued by the Ministry of Home Affairs and they have been evolving ever since. These office memorandums, they set out certain circumstances in which an LOC may be issued. It also speaks about which authorities are permitted to request for the issuance of an LOC, and it provides for the procedure by which an LOC request can be made and when it is accepted. Now, even though there's no specific law passed by the parliament for it, the LOC is still widely used by police and various government bodies as a tool to prevent certain individuals from traveling in or out of the country. It is basically issued by any agency to track a person. Either they apprehend that the individual will flee from the country while an investigation is being carried out against them, or the person is already fled abroad and they want to be notified the moment this person steps into our country. So the LOC, it intends to either restrain an individual from going out of the country or to notify the officials upon arrival of this person within India. The LOCs tend to be given in cognizable offenses wherein an FIR is registered against them. They are either absconding, not available for investigation, and therefore the immediate need to apprehend them at the airport or a seaport in order to get them to join investigations. It is also put in place in case they have a reasonable apprehension and belief that this person is going to flee from the country after committing an offense. So, as a safeguard, they issue this request of opening an LOC against this individual. Now, the issuance of an LOC typically involves coordination between multiple government agencies, including the police, the intelligence agencies, the Ministry of Home Affairs, the Bureau of Immigration. The process is firstly initiated based on the request from what we call as an originating or requesting agency, such as the Superintendent of Police. This request is issued from them to the Bureau of Immigration, wherein they state that they're requesting for an LOC to be issued against an individual. In a case, certain specific criteria have to be mentioned, like the reasons as to why they want to open an LOC. So they have to justify themselves as to why an LOC has to be opened against this person. Pursuant to the receipt of this request, the Bureau of Immigration will enter the LOC record into a comprehensive database all the particulars of the individual will be put in this database, and this database will be accessed by all immigration officials, which would provide the action required to be initiated by these officials. So you'll have your passport number, the description of the physical features of this individual. So whenever, if you're coming across in an immigration line, you are showing your passport, they check their database, they scan your passport, you all would have noticed. In that, in case your name is there on the LOC, immediately an alert is popped on the screen of this immigration officer. And that is when he will get to know that this person's name is there, an LOC is opened under his name, and he will take you on the site to detain you. Now, these actions may include informing it could either be that you are detained, or else in some LOCs, the request is just to be intimated of the arrival or departure of the accused. So that is just the agency seeking, what can I say? They're seeking to know when you're leaving the country, where exactly are you flying to. They're basically keeping a track of where you are traveling to. Not necessarily that it can be opened only to detain you or arrest you. They just want to ensure that they are aware of your whereabouts. Now, the Proforma of issuing a lookout circular, it's extremely confidential, and an individual is never really notified about it. That, okay, an LOC has been issued against you, here is the notice for the same, kindly acknowledge. None of that happens. Most of the clients never realize also that an LOC has been issued against them. Some find out when they are attempting to fly and they get detained. They cancel the ticket and state that an LOC is there, so you cannot exit the country. Another manner is wherein you know that there is a case registered against you. So you thereafter consult your lawyer, who will approach the respective agencies to inquire in a formal manner as to whether there is an LOC that has been opened or not against them. Sometimes the agencies aren't very cooperative in terms of letting you know that an LOC has been opened. And that is when you approach the High Court stating that you have reasons to believe and you apprehend the fact that they have opened an LOC against you. You also cannot file an RTI to find out whether your name is there in the list of requests of LOC. So these are the ways in which you can check whether an LOC has been opened against you. Now, there are some matters wherein the accused person is not even aware that an FIR has been registered against him. And the entire investigation is completed, charge sheet is filed. And later he finds out while he's returning back to India that there is a case against him. In such charge sheets is where we find a proforma of the LOC, which I will now show y'all. It is not easily accessible, but this will give y'all an idea of exactly how the request letter is sent and what all particulars are put out. So this is a proforma for issuance of the LOC. They first put the photograph over here. They fill in the names of the accused or the individual, the particulars that are given. All these details are to match exactly what is there in the passport as well. They give a certain physical description of the person. They give the passport number, particulars, details of when it was issued, when it's valid till, and they give the reason for opening an LOC. What is the FIR number, the date, the sections, the police station, the court that has ordered for this LOC to be issued, and the period for retention of the LOC. In this case, it's 1 year. Now, if you can see this point number 5, this is what they want the immigration officers to let them know. It's either inform the originator, that's the agency, of the arrival or departure of the individual, but no other action is to be taken, just so they can keep a track on where the individual is flying. Or it could be seizing the travel documents and sending it to the agency. It could be preventing this person, a foreigner probably, from entering India, prevent a person from leaving India. So you detain them and you immediately inform the agency. And this is the most coercive step, which is to detain and hand over the person to the local police station. That is, arrest the person at the airport and ensure that they are handed over to the custody of the local police station. Here are the details of the officer who is the originator in this case, the contact details, and the signature. So this is the entire proforma. This is what is filled up by the investigating agencies and submitted to the Immigration Bureau. So now that we've seen the proforma of the LOCs, let's try and understand exactly what these guidelines are. Now, the office memorandums that are issued by the Ministry of Home Affairs, they have been issued from time to time. It dates back to 5th September 1979. They are the underlying instructions of the framework for the issuance of lookout circulars. Now, these office memorandums are extremely difficult to trace. There is no proper compendium available, not in print, not in books in the library, not even online. Nothing is available in the public domain until 2000. I think 2000, after 2000 onwards, from 2010 onwards, they started publishing the office memorandums online. Now, in 2010, there was a decision passed by the Delhi High Court in the case of Vikram Sharma and others versus Union of India and others. The Delhi High Court passed a direction to the Ministry of Home Affairs to issue certain clarifications regarding the concerned authorities that can request to open a lookout circular. This direction was passed in the backdrop of the case wherein they were adjudicating on whether the National Commission of Women were allowed to authorize the request of an LOC or not. In that case, the Delhi High Court had held that the National Commission of Women cannot request for an LOC to be opened. But owing to this judgment, various guidelines were formed. This came out in the Office Memorandum of 27th October 2010, and it provided for a comprehensive framework for the issuance, enforcement, and cancellations of LOCs. So this was the first tangible reference point of an office memorandum. It explained that LOCs are issued to keep a watch on the arrival and departure of foreigners and Indians. It noted that apart from the Ministry of Home Affairs, the authorities empowered to issue lookout circulars were people from the Ministry of External Affairs, the Directorate of Revenue, the CBI, the Interpol, regional passport officers, customs and income tax departments, and of course, local police authorities from various states. This 2010 memorandum told us that the lookout circulars would lapse after a year, and if there is no request for an extension or renewal, the LOC automatically closes. Now, LOCs can be issued for individuals involved in cognizable offenses under the Indian Penal Code, BNS, or other penal codes. The guidelines specify the conditions under which an LOC can be initiated, ensuring that it is based on substantial evidence and justifiable reasons. In cases where there is no cognizable offense under the IPC or any other penal law, the LOC subject, that's the individual, cannot be detained or arrested or prevented from leaving the country. They can only simply make a request that they be informed about the arrival and departure of the LOC subject, the individual. Now, what is very important in this is the reason that the originating officer gives for opening an LOC. There have been matters wherein I've dealt with cases that we file a writ petition to quash the lookout circular, which is arbitrarily issued against an accused who has been cooperating with investigations all throughout. For reasons best known to these agencies, they misuse their power and open a lookout circular, wherein the individual's right, the constitutional right to travel abroad gets affected and they get detained in the airport. In one such matter I had filed before the Honorable Bombay High Court, a reply was sought by the agency that time being the CBI, as to for what reason have you given for opening the LOC. in this entire proforma where they are supposed to mention the reasons as to why they think it necessary to open a lookout circular, it was simpliciter written the FIR number and the details and the offenses. There was no substantial evidence or justifiable reasons as to why they have opened this lookout circular against my client. Solely basis this, the LOC was quashed. So of course we have to run to courts time and again, especially when there is no statute provided for an LOC to be open, because everything is about natural justice and your preservation of your fundamental rights. Now, the LOCs are supposed to be issued only in exceptional cases. Without complete parameters, case details against them, you cannot simpliciter issue an LOC. Subsequently, after 2010, there were various amendments that came about, and the most latest one after that, a more substantial one, was 5th December 2017, wherein the 2010 Office Memorandum was amended to the extent that the exceptional cases where an LOC can be issued, even in the cases which were not covered by the Office Memorandum, was enlarged, was broadened to include cases where the departure of a person is detrimental to sovereignty, security, integrity of India, bilateral relations with any country, or are against the economic interest of India. And if they are allowed to leave, they may indulge in any offenses relating to terrorism or against the state, and therefore such arrival or departure ought not to be permitted in the larger public interest. So the reasons of opening an LOC was broadened in the year 2017. In 2018 and 19, there were a number of further amendments that came about. The Serious Fraud Investigation Office, that's the SFIO, they were now authorized to trigger LOC requests. So also the chairman, managing director or CEO of a public sector banks. That is when all the bank scams came up on a rise and you had people fleeing from the country after committing huge defaults. So they were now allowed, apart from the police authorities, the income tax, the revenue department, the customs. Now, for the first time, it also included the public sector banks. So they could issue a request for an LOC if there is a person who has defaulted in their loan and has committed a cognizable offense. So the departure of a particular person is perceived to be detrimental to the economic interests of India, or if the departure of such person from India ought not be permitted in the larger public interests, they would be permitted to request for this LOC. Then on 22nd February 2021, once again the 2010 Office Memorandum was amended, and it is the latest guideline that is now being followed. I will share this guideline and we can run through this. This is how the memorandum is. It's issued by the Government of India, Ministry of Home Affairs Department. I had spoken about this judgment of Vikram Sharma, wherein the Delhi High Court had called upon the Ministry of Home Affairs to issue comprehensive guidelines. And that is when the court's observations are reiterated in this office memorandum. And these were the questions that were framed by the court. What are the categories of cases in which the investigating agency can seek recourse of LOC and under what circumstance? What procedures required to be followed by the investigating agency before opening a lookout circular? What is the remedy available to the person against whom such lookout circular has been opened? What is the role of the concerned court when such a case is brought before it? And under what circumstances the subordinate courts can intervene. Now over here, the remedies that are available to a person in case they find out that an LOC has been opened, it is not necessarily rushing to the High Court. One can also approach the trial court. The trial court have themselves the power to direct the police station under whose jurisdiction they are to remove the lookout circular, since this particular individual has come forth and is cooperating with the investigation. Another manner is also for the individual to directly approach the agency through a lawyer, stating that there is no apprehension required for you to open an LOC. I am here present and ready to cooperate with the investigations. This depends from case to case. There was another case that I had, which was of an belonged to EOW, that was the agency. The clients were from Hyderabad and the case was filed in Bombay. We had cooperated with the investigation during preliminary inquiry. Thereafter, FIR was registered. We cooperated with the investigation subsequent to FIR. Thereafter, charge sheet was also filed. After filing of charge sheet, we took the clients to court, got bail for them, and then it was just date after date because it will take some time for the trial to commence. However, one of the clients, when traveling, they were stopped at the airport and their ticket was cancelled. To which we wrote to the EOW officer as to why is there an LOC opened against this client when we have cooperated all throughout. That is when the EOW officer tells us that cases were shifted and therefore they were not aware as to the status in court. So they have just opened a lookout circular. So we wrote to them stating that we will take action against this if you yourselves do not withdraw this, as we have cooperated since the very beginning. Subsequent to that, that LOC was removed. So sometimes it's just such a mechanical procedure for them to follow. But not in every case do you need to jump across to the High Court to get it quashed. There are various methods depending from case to case. So in this office memorandum, the questions were answered over here. Recourse to LOC can be taken by investigating agencies in cognizable offences under IPC or other penal laws, where the accused was deliberately evading arrest or not appearing in the trial court, despite a non-bailable warrant and other coercive measures, and there was likelihood that the accused would leave the country. So this speaks about cognizable offences under IPC or other penal laws. Then an investigating officer, they can also make a written request for LOC to the officer as notified by this circular, giving details and reasons for seeking LOC. The competent officer alone shall give directions for opening LOC by passing an order in this respect. The person against whom LOC is issued must join investigation by appearing before the investigating officer, or should surrender before the court concerned, or should satisfy the court that LOC was wrongly issued against him. He may also approach the officer who ordered issuance of LOC and explain that LOC has wrongly been issued against him. The LOC can be withdrawn by the authority that issued and can also be rescinded by the trial court where the case is pending or having jurisdiction over the concerned police station. LOC is a coercive measure to make a person surrender to the investigating agency or court of law. The subordinate court's jurisdiction in affirming or cancelling LOC is commensurate with the jurisdiction of cancelling of NBWs or affirming NBWs. Therefore, they related to issuance of non-bailable warrants or bailable warrants. Similarly, in that manner, how non-bailable warrants can be cancelled before a court of law that has issued it, LOCs can also be cancelled if you give a justifiable reason as to why it should not be remaining open against you. This is where they speak about who all can open an LOC. Should be an officer not below the rank of Deputy Secretary, the Government of India, Joint Secretary in the state government, a district magistrate, the Superintendent of Police, the Superintendent of Police in CBI, the Narcotics Controller Bureau, the Deputy Commissioner or an officer of equivalent level in the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, of Customs, Direct Taxes, Indirect Taxes, the Assistant Director of Intelligence Bureau, this is the RAW, officer not below the level of Superintendent of Police in NIA, National Investigating Agency, Assistant Director of ED, Protector of Immigrants, Designated Officer of Interpol, Officer of SFIO, Chairman, Managing Directors, Chief Executives of all public sector banks. LOCs can also be issued as per direction of any criminal court in India. In such cases, request for opening of LOC shall be initiated by the local police or by any other law enforcement agencies concerned, so that all parameters for opening LOCs are available. I've spoken about various agencies wherein I've defended the clients from an LOC being opened against them. In a particular case, which was a check bouncing case, where the accused, I was for the complainant, the accused had already fled from the country, despite summons being issued, warrants being issued, non-bailable warrants being issued. They refused to remain present. We went up to the proclamation stage, they were still not present. And in a report, we found out that they have already fled from the country and they are residing elsewhere. That is when I made an application to the court for opening a lookout circular against this person, because the non-bailable warrant was already pending against them. In these cases, what happens is the court allows it, but they do not get detained. The officers are just informed as to when this person has arrived the country, and they give a report then to the court wherein I filed the complaint. And that is when I can take an action against this accused, because they have come back to India. So LOCs can be issued as per directions of any criminal court in India. The name and designation of the officer signing the proforma for requesting issuance of an LOC must invariably be mentioned, without which the request for issuance of LOC would not be entertained. They give the format of exactly what all details are to be required. Care must be taken by the originating agency, that is the one that's requesting for an LOC to be opened, to ensure that complete identifying particulars of the person, all your identification details, any marks on the face in respect of whom it's opened are indicated, so that the passport number and the face matches. Should be noted that an LOC cannot be opened unless the minimum of 3 identifying parameters, that is name, passport number, date of birth, are available. However, LOC can also be issued if name and passport particulars of the person concerned are available. It is the responsibility of the originator to constantly review the LOC requests and proactively provide additional parameters to minimize harassment to genuine passengers. Details of government ID like PAN card, driving license, etc. may also be included. This is the important aspect. Recourse to LOCs to be taken in cognizable offense under IPC or other penal laws. The details in column 4 in the enclosed proforma regarding reasons for opening LOC must invariably be provided, without which the subject of an LOC will not be arrested or detained. That is actual particulars, substantive evidence to be given and reasons to be mentioned as to why this person should be detained, not just the FIR number and the sections. In cases where there is no cognizable offense under IPC and other penal laws, the LOC subject cannot be detained or arrested or prevented from leaving. The originating agency can only request that they be informed. This is where I was talking about the check bouncing case where we applied for an LOC to be issued. It comes under this category. The LOC open shall remain in force until unless a deletion request is received. No LOC shall be deleted automatically. The originating agency must keep reviewing the LOCs opened at its behest on quarterly and annual basis and submit the proposals to delete the LOC. On many occasions, this is a guideline with respect to when LOCs are quashed. They are to be informed regarding it, because just by obtaining a court's order is not enough. Every government office requires 2 or 3 follow-ups that need to be done to ensure that your client's name has actually been deleted as per the court's order. For effective and better interception of LOC subjects, following guidelines will be followed. Specific action is to be taken by the immigration authorities on detection, which must be indicated in the LOC proforma. That's the clause 5 that I had shown you all of what exactly the originating agency requires when this person has been identified. These are the various other guidelines which are very administrative in nature. Once this came out, there was a question on how the public sector banks could be added over here. They could possibly misuse the opening of LOCs. And that is when Bombay High Court, in a case called Viraj Chetan Shah versus Union of India, it provided the critical insights into the legal and procedural aspects of LOCs being issued by the banks. So this decision, it removed the authority of public sector banks to, in fact, open an LOC. It said that it violated Article 14 and it was impermissible and invalid to give these powers to these banks to make requests for LOCs. That said, the Bombay High Court stated that the banks cannot open it. However, this decision has already been challenged in the Supreme Court, and we await the decision for that. But in the meantime, the banks can still open an LOC against you, and persons have to take permission to travel abroad from the High Court. So these specially petitions are still pending until that decision comes. This circular, this office memorandum itself is the one that will be followed, wherein the chairman, managing director of these public sector banks can indeed issue the LOCs. So I hope I could give you all some insight with respect to lookout circulars. They are colloquially called lookout notices, but when drafting, it's called LOCs. And it's a very interesting subject because unless you've actually dealt with a case with respect to this, one won't find this in a textbook to study from. So I'm very glad PLEA has chosen this topic for me to speak about and let you all know about this.
Lakshmi, there's one query in the chat box. What are the provisions relating to LOCs across various nations? Follow-up question: does United Nations have any provisions relating to LOCs?
United Nations per se will not have their own specific. It's all the countries themselves who have these laws created.
Okay. And do you have any idea regarding what are red corner notices?
Red corner notices are also issued by all like raw agencies, that is for fugitives and other foreigners that are issued for, who are also evading arrest. That is another level of emergency that is shown. That's higher than the lookout circular.
Okay. The next question: can the authorities be sued for recovering damages?
It's definitely a possibility for sure, because you are not only damaging the reputation of a person by arbitrarily issuing a lookout circular. So that is spoken like a true lawyer defending your client in order to help them recover some damages. That would be done by way of a civil suit, though. Once a court has already passed an order holding that the LOC opened against your client was indeed arbitrary.
Next question: which courts generally have the powers to try such cases?
As I mentioned, the High Court, the lower courts, the Magistrate Court, the Sessions Court, wherever the trial is going on. Say an FIR is registered at a local police station. For example, I'll take Bandra Police Station in Bombay. The court in Bandra, the Magistrate Court in Bandra will also have the power to recall this LOC. So it depends. If it's a CBI FIR, then you go to Sessions Court.
The next question: there is not much material available on this subject. Would you recommend any books or reference material to
Mm,
study this subject?
it was very difficult. In fact, only recently through this Bombay High Court order did Justice Gautam Patel annex all the office memorandums, and that truly helped us. So I can definitely give you all the name of the case. It is Viraj Chetan Shah versus Union of India and others, passed by the Bombay High Court. That judgment itself has various annexures to it, which includes around 5 to 6 office memorandums. It's a reported judgment, so should be easily available.
Okay. The next question: despite the provisions relating to LOC, how could so many fugitive billionaires fly out of India?
That's a great question, but they probably preempted that this was going to happen, and this in fact took place way before these stricter norms were put in, which is why the 2018 circular also came about, wherein banks can also open an LOC. So I guess they had very good lawyers at that point of time who told them when to escape at the right moment. But
Yep.
surely the
Mhm.
government has taken a stand now to make it extremely difficult for a person to get away with their crimes.
Okay. The next question: can you provide a list of what kind of accused are not allowed to enter the country?
So the list, as I mentioned, the people who are on this list of lookout circulars, it's a confidential list. It's not available to the public domain at all. So unless you are part of that agency, you will not be privy to knowing who exactly are on this list.
Okay.
Hmm.
Some portals call it lookout circulars, and portals like the Kerala police call it lookout notice. What
Yeah,
should we mention?
lookout circular.
Okay. So,
Related to that judgment, it will have all the office memorandums and it's always referred to as lookout circulars.
okay.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, in few cases we have seen like Kingfisher case or any some underworld news we listen. So
Hmm.
in that case, it may happen that LOC is they have got LOC or it may be without LOC, but they flee away from the India. So after flying away from here, what is the role? How they are punished and how that investigation is carried on later on also.
So that you're going into extradition laws once a person has already flown away and cannot be
Yeah.
caught and is not entering back in India. That would be then extradition laws that come into play, as we can see that's happening with Vijay Mallya and all. That is where
Yes.
our country files in that country to extradite him to get him back. So once he leaves the country, if he's not coming back, then there is a treaty that is there with the other countries. We have to follow that protocol.
But this type of results we don't see. After they flee away, na, we don't see
Hmm.
any satisfactory results.
Yeah. That's true. I guess we just have to wait and see exactly what the government does to get them back. I'm sure they're trying every possible manner, but let's see.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am. My question is, if there is any lookout notice, if a person is apprehending that it might be issued, what are the ways for him to know in advance that it has been issued? Whether an RTI, you said something like RTI.
So,
So
Sumedh,
can
I
you?
already addressed this point. One is RTI, if through RTI you cannot get to know. It is your lawyer who first it's whether the person, the client knows whether an FIR is registered against him or no. That is why he may apprehend that an LOC is there, right? So is your question with respect to an FIR that you are aware has been registered against you?
Okay, that it may be in that case, or sometimes it may be a case which has happened 2 years back and it
Yes.
is going on, and probably he needs to go outside country.
Right. So if the case has already taken place 2 years back and the person has cooperated with investigations, then once the charge sheet is filed, usually at the time of obtaining the bail, there are certain conditions given as to take permission of the court before traveling. So when such strictures are given and you have cooperated with the agency, then they do not issue a lookout circular at all. The only way you'll be taken aback that there is a lookout circular issued against you is when you are not aware that an FIR only was there. But if you are aware if FIR is registered, you can always speak to the authorities to ensure that there is no LOC issued against you. Else it's very difficult to get to know and you will only be stopped at that airport.
Exactly, that was my point. Because
Yeah.
if you have booked the tickets and all those things, then it
Yes,
might be a
yes.
pretty
That has
uh,
happened to quite a few clients of mine also, and we annexed the cancelled ticket to show the High Court that see my ticket was cancelled. I was detained because I have no other proof to tell the court that my name is on LOC.
okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you.
I just wanted to know that what should be mentioned in RTI that we want to know that LOCs has been issued. What are the questions should we write in RTI? This is it.
No, I don't think you all have understood. You cannot file an RTI to find out if your name is there on that LOC list. They will tell you
Okay.
it is confidential, it is not within public domain.
Okay.
So RTI is not at all an answer to find out if your
Okay.
name is on that list.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gaurav.
Thank you so much, Lakshmi, for such a wonderful session. It was a great learning experience. Thanks for sharing your expertise.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Plea.